Okay, so today we're going deep on something that's maybe not the most glamorous topic, but is super important for any business out there.
Definitely.
We're talking about accounts receivable.
Yeah, the lifeblood of a lot of businesses, you could say.
Absolutely. And I think, we've all been there. We've done some work, sent an invoice, and then we're just kind of sitting there.
Waiting, right?
Waiting. Yeah, exactly. For that payment to come through.
It can be a little nerve-wracking sometimes, especially for smaller businesses.
Totally. And that's why we're doing this deep dive, right? To really get into the nuts and bolts of what accounts receivable are, how they work, and why they matter so much. So to kick things off, let's start with a clear definition. We've got one ready to go right here.
All right, lay it on us.
Okay, so accounts receivable, AR, is the money owed to a company by its debtors for goods or services that had been delivered or used but not yet paid for. So basically, it's like a IOU from your customers.
Exactly. And it's really important to remember that these are short-term assets. They're expected to be converted into cash, usually within a year or less.
Right. It's not like you're waiting decades to get paid, hopefully.
Unless you're in some really niche industries, maybe.
Okay, so we've got the definition down, but let's make this a bit more concrete. We've got a real-world example lined up here, and it's a big one. Woolworths.
Woolworths. A classic example, and I think a lot of people will be familiar with them, right? Big supermarket chain down in Australia.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when we talk about Woolworths in the context of accounts receivable, it really highlights how this concept plays out in both B2C and B2B settings.
Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that.
Right. So on one hand, you've got Woolworths selling groceries directly to us, everyday consumers. That's your typical B2C, business to consumer transaction. You grab your milk and bread, swipe your card, and boom, payment done. But on the other hand, Woolworths also supplies tons of products and services to other businesses, and that's where the B2B aspect of accounts receivable comes in. Think about all the restaurants, cafes, smaller shops that stock their shelves with Woolworths goods. Those transactions often involve credit terms, meaning Woolworths is essentially extending a line of credit, and that creates accounts receivable.
So Woolworths is kind of acting like a mini bank in a way.
In a sense, yeah. They're providing financing to their business partners, which obviously comes with its own set of risks and rewards.
Makes you think about all the different businesses out there who must be dealing with this, not just the retail giants.
Exactly. It's not just limited to supermarkets or massive corporations. Your local bakery, the freelance graphic designer you hired for your website, even that plumber who fixed your leaky faucet.
Yeah.
They're all potentially navigating this world of accounts receivable.
So it really is everywhere, right? And I think that's a good takeaway for our listeners. Whether you're running a business yourself or just interacting with them as a customer, understanding this concept can give you a whole new perspective on how things work behind the scenes.
Absolutely. It's all about managing that delicate balance between maintaining healthy cash flow and keeping those customer relationships strong.
So let's say a business has sent out their invoices and they're, playing the waiting game. What happens when those invoices just don't get paid? Is that where we get into the scary territory of bad debts?
Yeah, that's the dark side of accounts receivable for sure. A bad debt is basically an amount owed to a business that they've pretty much given up hope on collecting.
Like they've sent the reminder emails, made the phone calls, and still nothing.
Right. And at some point, you have to cut your losses and write it off as a loss. It could be because the customer went bankrupt, maybe they just vanished into thin air, or maybe they're just flat out refusing to pay. Whatever the reason, it's a hit to the company's finances. No way around it.
Oof, that's got to be tough, especially for smaller businesses with tighter margins.
No doubt about it. That's why having a solid strategy to mitigate that risk is crucial. It's not just about chasing down late payments. It's about being proactive from the start.
So what kind of strategies are we talking about here? What can businesses do to protect themselves?
Well, there are quite a few options. A lot of businesses offer early payment discounts, incentivize customers to pay their invoices sooner rather than later.
Makes sense.
Right. It's like a little reward for good behavior. And then there are stricter credit checks, making sure you're not extending credit to customers who are likely to default. And then there's something called factoring receivables, which can be a bit more complex, but it basically involves selling those outstanding invoices to a third party at a discount to get cash up front.
Okay, so they're basically outsourcing the debt collection process.
Kinda, sorta, yeah. It's a way to get that cash flow moving faster, even if it means taking a slight hit on the total amount. It's all about weighing the pros and cons and finding what works best for your specific situation.
This has been eye-opening, honestly. It's
Right.
like peeling back the curtain on how businesses really operate.
It's definitely one of those things that's often overlooked, but is so fundamental to the financial health of any company.
Right. And I think our listeners can really benefit from understanding this concept. So to recap, accounts receivable is all that money a business is owed for goods or services they've already delivered. It's a bit of a balancing act, right?
It is.
You got to make sure you're getting paid, but you also got to maintain those good relationships with your customers.
And protect yourself from those pesky bad debts.
Exactly. And there are all sorts of strategies and tools out there to help businesses navigate this whole process. All right. Well, before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a little something to ponder. The next time you're interacting with a business, big or small, pay attention to their AR process. Are they sending you digital invoices? Do they offer those early payment incentives we talked about? Do they have a clear system for handling late payments? These little details can reveal a lot about how a company manages its finances and ultimately how they value their customers.
That's a great point. It's like a window into their operational efficiency, you could say.
Exactly. All right. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of accounts receivable. Hopefully you learned something new today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.